Good morning, everybody. Day 13. We are doing borders and sashing today. So I've just got some fabric here. I'm just going to cut into a strip while you all jump on. Borders and sashing, day 13. I just shared a fabulous collection of 12 blocks from Karen, and I've just been in the event here and I've just seen two more that I shall share after the event. So if yours is one of those, good morning Leslie, morning Angela. Then I've seen two more. So I think that takes us to 5 or 6. Morning Susan. Yeah, they're amazing, aren't they? They're absolutely amazing. I'm just cutting some fabric. Basically I had to clean the kitchen floor this morning. Good morning Maggie, morning Jane, morning Suzanne. Suzanne's is one of the ones I've just seen. Oh my goodness, utterly incredible, which I'll be sharing after. I literally just saw it for a split second. I managed to do a wow emoji, but that's all I could manage at this second. Good morning Linda, good morning Abby, and all. How do I put pics on? You can post them in the event, or you can post them to my Abeygale page and I'll share them from there. Up to you. Good morning Joe, good morning Carol. So we're talking borders and sashing today. If for any reason I say borders and binding, I do mean borders and sashing. For some reason I keep saying borders and binding. It's the bees, morning Susie. 2 to go, brilliant. So we're doing borders and sashing. By borders I mean you'll have 2 blocks. You'll have the Lemoyne Star and you'll have the Colorado, which are smaller than the rest, okay? That is because you're going to be putting borders around, which means you're going to have 3 with borders essentially, because you've got your log cabin, which has got the block colour all around the outside. So you'll end up with 3 with that same block colour around, and it just makes for an interesting pop. Angela, I've just danced around the house today with Mr. Sheen and he ran out of steam, so Mr. Pledge had to cut it. Hi Karen. Yes, so that's what I mean by borders. We're going to be doing these 2 borders. Now, oh, dropped one, hold on, throw this away. Whatever size you've ended up with these, now I know that it can vary because, you know, we're only human, it will vary. Whatever size you end up with these, you want to make them up to 12.5-inch squares. Okay, 12.5-inch squares. So mine, before I put this border on, they were 10.5-inch for the Lemoyne, and the Colorado was about 10.25 inches. So what you're going to do is you're going to put on some borders. Now I'm going to show you how to do that. Now it will depend what size your block is to what size border you need to put on. So, but bear in mind you want to make your block up before you've joined them all together to 12.5 inches. So what you can do is, so for example, this Colorado block, which is what did I say it was, about 10.25. I put, it's very tricky because I'm using a very odd mat here. I put on strips, they're 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches either, all the way around. What I would say is go for 2-inch strips or 2.5-inch strips if you've got some pre-cut, and then you can trim it to size. It's always better to go bigger and then trim it. So that way you can then put it on your cutting mat and you can trim it exactly to size. It'll probably be a lot easier. So go bigger than go smaller, all right? So I've got we're going to pretend this is a block and I'm going to show you the order in which we put the borders on. Borders, yes. Borders and binding, borders and sashing. Say the right words, we'll be on to a good start. I'm just turning my iron on. So I'll poke you down. Good morning, Hayley. Good morning, Karen. Oh no, you've run out of fabric. I used the square block. That's okay. You can use a different fabric. That's fine. What I would say is just don't use a fabric you're going to use for the sashing, because you really want these to pop out. And if you use the same you're going to use for the sashing, they sort of look smaller compared to everything else. So just frame them with something else. Right, I'm going to poke you down. If you can see my joggers, they're the same colour as the last 2 days, but I promise they're a different pair. Right, so borders. Okay, so well, this is our block. This is the Lemoyne Star, let's say. Excuse me. So what you want to do is attach your strips top and bottom first. Okay, so what I always do is I will line up my strip and I'll just cut it the same as we did for the log cabin. If you remember, we're just going to cut it longer. We're going to put right sides together and stitch all the way across. Then when we fold it back, we can trim it exactly to size. And then we're going to do the same for the top piece. So I'll cut a piece for the top. Okay, so let's move these blocks out of the way. I've got blocks everywhere. Blocks everywhere this morning. So that's my piece I'm going to use for the top. Bring in my machine. 1/4 inch as always. You've only made one, that's okay. You had an unpicking weekend. Look, we're all learning. We're all learning. Right sides together. 1/4 inch as usual. And just stitch this strip down. Okay. Then you're going to repeat that for the bottom. I'm not pressing yet, there's no need. Right sides together. And stitch that strip down. All the way along. Okay. Now go to your ironing board or bring in your mat or whatever you've got. You're going to set those seams. Remember, I always do this first. I just find it gives me a nicer press. So I press along where my stitching is, and then I roll the fabric back, and then I press it again. And I do think that makes a difference. Okay, so there's those two. Now we're going to trim them so it's exactly the right size as the block. I love to do it this way because if you've cut slightly too short, it's not going to work. If you pull on it slightly or whatever, if cutting to the size to begin with, I never ever do. So it's just a little bit of waste, but I find, especially if you're a beginner, this will work for you better. Linda, I cut mine wrong and ended up with lots of very small squares. Oh no! Right, so all I'm doing is using the side of the block. So this is, say, the Lemoyne Star. I'm using the side of the block, putting my ruler down, and I'm trimming off these two. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to use that side again and trim. Okay, now we're going to put on sides, 2 pieces either side. So again, I'm going to cut these slightly too long, but what you want is you want to go past this black strip and past this black strip. So this is going to be the side. And again on the other side, and then right sides together. So it's exactly the same way as we blocked in the log cabin. Okay, so just lining those up. And stitch that down. Oops, my machine didn't like that. Have I ever told you about my wallpaper scissors? I just absolutely love them. They're so sharp, and they just seem to do a really good job with my fabric. And they're cheap. Right, let's try that again. Okay. A bit like this now. All the way down. And then the other one on the other side. Remember to leave that overhang. And stitch. Make sure it's lined up. Okay. Let's have a look. How are we getting on? Hi, Leslie. Morning, Eileen. Hi, Peter. No, you've not missed much. I'll do a little recap. So we're pretending this is the Lemoyne Star or the Colorado block. We've added a strip to the top, a strip to the bottom, and now we're doing the side strips. And this is the border, and this is what's going to make those two blocks up to 12.5 inches. So every block needs to be 12.5 inches. If you've got a block that's slightly bigger, you will need to trim it to 12.5 inches, or the sashing will not sit correctly. That may mean that you're slightly cutting in to your design. So for instance, if you've got the card trick and yours is slightly bigger than 12.5, you will need to make it 12.5. Now that may mean that you lose a little point. But rather you lose that little point and you're able to line up all the blocks than you can't line up your sashing correctly. Okay, so now I'm just trimming these two ends. And again, if you've got a slightly smaller block, just add on a bit of border, okay, like this. So let's say this is 1/2 inch too big on either side. After we've measured it, it's 1/2 inch too big. So all we'll do is we'll take our ruler, we'll measure 1/2 inch in, and we'll trim each side to size. Okay? So that's what you're going to do with your borders for those blocks. I do recommend you putting on a thicker border to start with, and then you can trim it down. Rather you do that than when you come to measure it, it's too small. Okay, so that's what you're going to do to those two blocks. Okay, so now we're moving on to sashing. So I am choosing, where is it? Here. I'm choosing a purple sashing. It's going to make my quilt completely out there and nutty, which I'm perfectly fine with. A good tip is to get a bit of your fabric. You don't need to cut it off anything. If you've got a bolt or you've got a meter, don't cut it, but just lay your blocks on it. Which are the three I'm using here? Lay your blocks on top. I've lost a block somewhere. Can't remember now which one I was doing next. Oh, it's the Lemoyne Star, isn't it? No, where's the Lemoyne Star gone? Bear with me, I've put a block somewhere. I had it, didn't I, to show you? Here it is, here it is, here it is. Right, yes, so what you do is just lay your fabric over your choices for your sashing, and then you can look at it and you can think, does that work, does that not work? This is going to make this completely crackers, but I'm perfectly happy with that. Perfectly happy with that bright purple. Just thinks it gives it a bit of pizzazz. That's okay. If any of your any of your blocks, morning mum, are slightly smaller, you can either cut them all down to the smallest size, or you can build them up with those borders, all right? So from mine, the only two that I need to build up are those two, the smaller blocks. Everything else is 12.5 inches. So if yours are slightly bigger, slightly smaller, either when you put the borders on, trim everything to the same size, or add on a border to each block that's slightly smaller, okay? Right, so I'm gonna do row 1, so you can see the sashing, okay? So we're going to use 2.5 inch strips. If you want to go bigger, by all means go bigger. If you want to go smaller, I would only probably go to 2 inches. Okay, just folding my fabric up so I can get a nice neat edge, so I can start cutting some strips. So just cutting myself some 2.5 inch strips. If you've got some pre-cuts, fab. What am I doing? 2.5 inch strips. That's not very straight. Make sure you are starting off straight, because otherwise you're going to have especially if you've folded your fabric like I am, you don't want to have a wonky strip. So just trim that. That's better. Like 2.5 inches. So I'll cut myself just a few to start with. Now with these strips, once you've got all your blocks to 12.5 inches, you know that you can cut these to the right size. So we'll go through that in a second. Right, that'll do for now. So let's get our blocks in. So starting with your top row, So my top row is from left to right is my pinwheel, it's my ribbon star, and it's my Lemoyne star. All right. So starting with, just try and keep these in the right order because I can't access my pictures. So I need to make sure I've got them how I want them. So starting with your first block, I'm just going to give that a little press because I have been manhandling them quite a lot. I just want to make sure it's right. Give that just a little press. Just the edges is fine because they're all really that you're worried about at the moment. Okay. Onto my mat. Okay. So looking at your own block in front of you, you're going to place a strip on the left-hand side. Okay, and that strip is going to be the length of the block from top to bottom. Yeah, so we know that's 12.5 inches, and then we're going to place another strip on this side, and we also know that's 12.5 inches. All right, let me just measure my block to make sure. Yes, so I'm going to cut those two strips to 12.5 inches. And this will save you having any waste because you're going to be using a lot of this fabric for the sashing. So you can be conservative now. So just one strip, lining that up along my board, 2 strips, and then I've got a bit spare there because of how I cut my fabric. Right, excuse me. So now we're going to place right sides together, a strip here, right sides together, a strip here, and we're going to stitch 1/4 inch either side, okay? How much of the purple fabric do you need? I'll be honest with you, because I'm doing this such on the cuff, I've not measured it. But if you're doing 12.5 down each strip, and then a strip between, I'm sure you can work it out from there. Right, so I'm attaching 1/4 inch to either side of my block. So right side and left side, not top and bottom, right side and left side. Now, of course, you don't have to add any sashing if you don't want to. You can just join your blocks together. I've gone very wonky there. I don't know what happened. So I'm just going to unpick that bit. Can you see? I've just gone off kilter a bit there. So I'm just going to unpick that line, a little bit of it anyway. Until I see the sides that are joined up. Okay, there we are. I'm just going to turn my heater off. You know how warm I get so quickly in here. There we go. Oh goodness. And big news, my mum's boiler is now working. So we have a functioning boiler in my mum's house. Thank goodness for that. Right. Just carry on with that strip and just make sure that's lined back up. And I'm much happier with that now. Okay. Highlight again. Don't know the time difference between you and here. Well, the clocks have gone back, Lizzie-Anne. So whatever it was before is now an hour earlier. Because your clocks went back, you know, a while back. But ours have just gone back. Ours went back not last night, night before. So whatever it used to be for you is now an hour earlier. So just stitching this one on. Lovely. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure about the purple when I decided upon it. Sorry, I just hit the camera. But I do like it now. So setting my seams, rolling that back. Got an annoying thread poking through, so I've just trimmed that off. Okay. So now we move on to attaching the next block. Now the next block you won't need to repeat these two because this is the complete side edge. So you're going to attach your next block to this strip. So my next block is the ribbon star, which I'll just press again. I'm quite obsessive compulsive about pressing. I'm sure you won't need to press half as much as I do. So you're going to place this block right sides together on the furthest edge of your purple. Oh, hold on. I hear a bicycle sound. Someone on a bicycle out there. So now I'm going to stitch right a quarter inch all the way down. It's 11:22 here. Yes, sorry, I couldn't even think about what the time was there. Oh, your clocks go back on Sunday. Oh, you're in Australia, of course. I don't know why I thought you were in America. You're in Australia. So I hope everyone's keeping safe over in Australia. So quarter an inch. Okay, all the way down. Just keep that lined up. Okay. Now you probably won't, as I say, you probably won't need to press as much as I do. Because you could attach the next strip without pressing this next one. But I'm a little OCD about it, so I shall press it. Roll it back. Press. Okay. So now you've got your furthest edge strip done. You've got that sashing, and then you've got your next block. So now we put a bit of sashing, the same again, 12.5 inches on this end. So I shall cut a strip, 12.5 inches. There's my rotary cutter here. 12.5 inches, cut, and then I'll cut another 12.5 inches for the final strip. So 12.5, or whatever you've made your blocks to be. I nearly threw that bit away. So next one, strip here, right sides together, and stitch. I've got a good film recommendation for you, Le Mans. We watched that a couple of nights ago and it was absolutely super. We're just lining up those sides. Got a bit off there. And just take your time. Like that one. And set that seam too. How are you getting on? Yeah, the purple, yeah. It's nice, isn't it? I wasn't totally convinced, but I'm liking it now. Right, so your final block in this row, mine is the Lemoyne. So I shall just press this a little. And then you're taking this, flipping it, so it's right sides to the edge of that purple. Bring the machine and stitching that down. Okay. Which it's not straight yet. You can use your quilting clips or your pins to keep everything in place. Okay. Lovely. Yes, I'm really liking the purple now. Okay, so final edge, we're going to put on the 12.5 inch strip. And then that's the 3 blocks joined, and then I'll show you how to do the sashing between the rows. So again, 12.5 inch strip. And join that together. As you know, I always put my needle in and then I adjust the fabric from there. So once I've got that top point lined up, I then pull my fabric and I go for it. Right, so what you're going to do is you're going to repeat this for every row. So every row of 3, you're going to repeat this. So I'll just turn the camera up. Sorry, just me for a second so you can see. So for every row of 3, you're going to put an end piece on, whichever side that is, and then you're going to join them with 2 strips, and then you're going to have an end piece. So you'll have 4 12.5-inch strips for each piece. End, 2 centre pieces, end piece, all right? So you're going to do that for each of the 4 rows. So you end up with 4 of these. 4 of those with whatever layout that you've planned. So to join them all together, you're going to, for the top strip, for the top one, which is this one for me, which is this one, you're going to have a strip going along the top, and then you're going to put a strip on the bottom of this one, and then you're going to join on going forward. So there are, what you can do, what I'm going to do is put a strip along the whole length. That's another 2.5-inch strip along the whole length. Now, if you haven't got strips long enough, you can join your strips together. I'll show you a quick way of joining your strips together, in case you don't already know. Or you can cut them at 12.5 inches, and then you can put a 2.5-inch square in between of a different colour. So, for example, you've got a strip going on the bottom here. Between this purple and the next purple, you would have a different colour square. But you would put that on 12.5-inch strip, 2.5-inch square. Yeah? 12.5-inch strip, 2.5-inch square, 12.5-inch strip, 2.5-inch square. But it's a lot easier if you just join your strips together. So I'll poke you down and I'll show you how I join my strips together. So, it's got cold in here now. I need to turn the heat back on. Put it on mid temperature. So I'm just going to take off the selvage from this strip. Okay. So what I've got is I've got one strip down, and I've got the tail of that strip going off to the left. Then I've got my next strip, and I'm going to place that on top of this fabric, and I'm going to have that strip going down to me. All right? Down to me. So you end up with a right angle, one bottom strip going that way, top strip going down to me. You can draw on, if you like, from point where your fabric starts the strip to point where this fabric ends. You can draw a line, and then you're going to stitch that line so that when you turn it, I've just got my hand in the way, when you turn it, you'll end up with a longer strip. All right, so we'll just do that so you can see what I'm on about. But you need this to be precise. These do need to line up. So if you want to draw a line, then do. So from point to point. Before you cut that excess off, just double check that you've done it right, and then cut off that triangle. Quarter an inch or closer if you want. Bring in your mat. Now, with patchwork and quilting in general, we press our seams to one side or the other. So if you've gone through these, you'll have noticed I press one side to the other. With the binding, I like to open my seams because I find that it's a lot easier. That bulk is spread, so it's a lot easier. So you just simply open that seam up. If you've got a pokey tool or something, some scissors, just to open that up. And then I'll press that open. And I just think, for me, that helps with my joins because there's less bulk when I come to stitch it. I'll just open that one. And press. Okay, and then I'll flip it over and press from the other side. Now what you've got is a much longer strip, all right? And it really doesn't matter about that stitch line. That's quite common in quilting and patchwork because that's how we join our strips together, all right? So, here is our strip. So we've got 4 of these when you've done all 4. And then I'm going to cut. I'm fortunate enough, I've got a huge roll. So I'm just going to roughly cut off a bit so I can make some long strips. Pop that to one side. And line it up. So we spoke about program recommendations the other day. Has anyone got any more? Because we're rapidly running out. So just trimming this. I've got a nice line to start with. And then making sure my fabric is straight. And then 2.5-inch strips again. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, just moved that slightly over. I don't know if I've got that quite. Not sure about that one. Okay, so you've got. I'm just going to put that one to the side because I'm not quite sure if that went straight. Okie dokie. So I've got all my strips. So we're starting with the top. Remember, this is my top row, and all I'm going to do is just trim off my selvage. And I probably, to be fair, will need to make this strip slightly longer. So let's have a look. This is where pins come in really handy, especially for the long strips. It will make your life easier if you're pinning. So I'm just going to find my pins, which, you know, I barely use pins, so they're sort of scattered. There's a couple. So I'm going to pin this strip to the very corner, and then I'm just going to pin it along to see if I've got the right amount. I mean, I could measure it, but I haven't got enough space today to. I'm just slightly shy, so maybe a couple of inches. So I'll join another strip on like I did for the other piece. So we'll probably use the strip that I thought I didn't cut quite right, and then I can cut into that and use bits and pieces. So rotary cutter, and I'll probably just cut off about 7 inches of that. And then I'll join that together. 7th of April, British Sewing Bee. Brilliant. 7th of April. Fantastic. Cannot wait. Okay. And join those together. Double check that that's right. Trim. Bring in my mat. I'm throwing it all over the place this morning. You would not believe the size of my workbench. It is about, oh, how long is it? Must be 6 foot, my workbench. And I work in this tiny little bit to try and show you what I'm doing. So I'm not used to it. I'm used to chucking my stuff everywhere. So I'm just going to open these seams like I did for the example one. You can just gently press that open with the scissors if you want, and then it's a lot easier to press. Okay, then flip it over and press that out. Lovely, lovely jubbly. Trim off my threads. You'll probably be using threads that are the right colour. As you know, I do like to try and do a colour that you'll be able to see. I've got pins everywhere now. I said I didn't have pins. Right, so I'm going to pin that back on, and I'm going from that corner again, making sure that's all level. If you don't feel comfortable, do the excess. Yeah, so you can trim it. So you can take it off the edge by 1 inch and pin it down. As I say, it's better to have extra than not enough. So if you're at all worried, I'm going to do that. Keep an end off, and then just spread this across. Make sure everything is flat. Make sure it's lined up. And then to the end. And where's my other pin? Here. Okay. I'll probably add in a couple more pins because this is a long piece. Another pin here. Just keep checking, and I'm fine with that. So now I'm going to stitch that all the way along. Oh, Sue, it's your birthday on the 7th of April. MasterChef Australia, seasons 1 to 12. Oh, I haven't watched any MasterChef Australia. Do they have a different format than our MasterChef? Right, I'm starting off the joined area on the strip. Okay, so I'm starting in the excess area. So just making sure everything's lined up. Just take your time. Keep that all neat. Okay. Carry on. Just take out that pin. Keep your block straight as you can. I haven't pinned that very well, so I'm just going to take out my pins and I'm going to hold it. Keeping everything as flat as I can out here, and these fabrics nice and flat on the machine. Okay, now we're heading into the last block. obviously I'm not going to do the whole quilt sashing on this live. Once I've done this strip, you'll know how to do it all. Okay, keep that fabric nice and straight, and then you're going to go off into the excess again. So now I've got where the strip is joined together. I'm just going to make sure that seam is nice and flat. So I go over it neatly and then straight past the corner onto the excess. Okay. Then we're going to bring in our mat, which now I've launched this side. Okay. What she said? It's going to look lovely on your sofa. Oh, you can dream on. I'm still waiting for my quilt that you promised me. So I'll trade you. I'll trade you. We have a running theme when I go around to my mum's is I pick up a lot of the stuff she's made and I say, oh yes, I'm so pleased you've made that for me, thank you. And what's ironic is Mum made a blanket with all autumn colours just up my street. And I was saying, oh, I really want that one, I really want it, can I have it, can I have it? No, you can't have it, no, you can't have it. And then one of the children, Jaden, the eldest, he went for a sleepover and came back with the quilt for himself. My mum had given Jaden the quilt. Unbelievable. Right, so I'm just trimming off that excess, okay? So your strip will now be 2 1/4 inches because you've used 1/4 inch. That's your end strip. You've used 1/4 inch seam allowance. So just trim off. Just actually, let's fold it up. Let's iron it up first. That would be silly of me to. Make sure you've ironed up your strip first. I set my seam and then I didn't iron it back. Iron back your strip. Iron back that strip. Yes, I'm quite pleased with the purple now. So iron all the way along. All the way along. Okay, now you're going to trim off the excess. Okay. Other thread. I end up covered in threads and I go out like this, you know. I dread to think what people must think of me when I'm out and about, like what's all over her top. So I'm going to trim this off using my ruler, going by the end strip, 2 1/4 inches. Just straighten that strip out so everything's laying flat and accurate and trimming that off. And then I'm going to flip it round. And I'm going to do the same again for the other side. Just make sure everything's nice and flat. 2 1/4 inches. Let's move you up. Oh, gracious. That was aggressive, wasn't it? So now what you've got is you've got a top strip and you've got sashing, okay? So now you're going to do sashing again, repeat the top on the bottom of this piece, to which then you're going to join your next row on, then a strip of sashing, next row, strip of sashing, next row, base strip, which is exactly the same as how you've attached the top strip and exactly how you're going to attach your side strips, okay? So you're just going to repeat that going down. So there we are, that's how you do sashing. And that's how you do the borders for the smaller blocks. And I think that that border around the smaller blocks really does give you a bit of pop. Yeah? So tomorrow we're going to do binding and we're going to do quilting techniques. It's homeschooling this afternoon, so whether or not I get a chance to put all my binding on is another story, but what I'm going to do is I'll prepare I'll prepare something so I can show you how to bind. All right. Oh, thank you, Leslie. That's really kind. Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, the purple's lovely, isn't it? Thank you, Eileen. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do tomorrow. Same time, same place, 11 o'clock. What else? And then we're going to move on to something else. Now that I am going to prepare this afternoon so I can show you tomorrow at the end what we're going to do going forward, because I've had a brainwave and I've got it. And also don't forget tonight at 6 o'clock, I know that I've said this is not, I'm not going to talk about business, but I'll let you know about the pressing mats, and I'm just going to let you know about this quickly. I've got scrap bags going live on my website at 6 o'clock. I say scrap bags, they aren't scraps. They're good sized pieces, and they're not scraps. They've been cut from the bolt. So for example, they'll be cut from, bolts. And the information for that is on my page. Right, let's see what you're saying. Oh, you're welcome, Sally. Sally. Oh, that's brilliant, Leslie. Yeah, I mean, you can do it. I know you can. If I can, you definitely can. Lizzie Ann, thank you. There's a new call to my stash very limited. That's okay. Listen, these videos are going to be around forever. Thank you, Linda. Oh, you're welcome, Peter. Yes, I'm pleased that we're going to carry on because, I need you all. You keep me sane. Like, this is my sanctuary. I actually walked in this morning and went, sanctuary. So yes, that's what we're going to be doing forward. So just a quick recap. Tomorrow we're doing binding and quilting. So don't worry if you haven't sashed everything together. I'll just show you what you can do and you can come back to it at any point. So binding and quilting tomorrow. At the end of tomorrow, I'll reveal the next project that we're going to do. Exciting times. And tonight at 6 p.m. on my page is scrap bags. They are so popular that they do go within the first half an hour or so, and it is limited to one per person because they're a bargain, and they are limited numbers. So I think it's only fair, one per person, which I've done for the last year or so, and it seems to work okay. Thank you, everyone. Right, I'll log off now, leave you to your day. Hope you have super days, and I'll see you bright and early tomorrow. That's it. I think we've all done brilliantly. I'm going to share the next lots of 12 blocks that I've seen throughout the day. I'll try and stagger them so I don't overload you with pictures. But I'll see you later. Thanks, everyone. Bye.